Joe DeVonzo.
Yep.
Craig Johnson is absent, and Paul Gobbin is absent.
All right, first item on the agenda is approved minutes from September 2023. Any questions, anyone? So moved. Do we have a motion?
Second?
Okay, a motion and a second. There's no questions? In favor? Opposed?
Who made the motion, Mark?
Larry and Steve. Okay, item 3, recommendations. Rich?
You have another packet underneath what you have there, and it's for 2 festivals. The first being the Vendor, which starts May 13th and runs through September, and the second being Waterworld, which is June 15th. Both are being put on by Bucksport Bay Business Coalition. And just a little precursor, and so that everyone knows, these usually go through Code, Fire, Police, and Harbor Master Review. Economic Development Director has no oversight, but this committee does. I appreciate everything that Terry has done. She's brought some events without the chamber being around to the town. No other department has had a chance to review these as of yet, but prior for them going to the council, the step is each of those, police, fire, code, and harbor master, if it impacts the town dock, which would be vendor, would also have to sign off on these. Vendor started last year and happened in August and September, was the 2nd and 4th Monday. As you can see, Terry's proposing the same thing, going a little bit longer this year, but ending earlier as well. She is looking to and has spoken with DC Winchester about a mobile bar on the waterfront and is looking for an opportunity for students with their parents' permission to participate in an entrepreneurship opportunity to teach kids customer service, financial, and creative opportunities, and she'll waive the vendor space for that. And I may be speaking out of turn again, this is the committees, and again, I appreciate everything that Terry has done for us for having these events. It's one less thing that the town has to worry about. What I'm looking at, though, when I think of events like this, when it's in a for-profit nature, is that, and no one may come forward, but when you think of Bangor and the waterfront concerts, an RFP is put out for something like that, and all for-profit businesses or banks have the opportunity for naming rights, and they pay to use the public space. My concern, and again, it's simply my concern as an economic development director, and I don't get a chance to say it anywhere else, is if McDonald's or someone else comes and says, every Tuesday we want to do Big Mac Tuesday on the waterfront. We have set a precedence where we've allowed a for-profit business to do this. And it's up to this committee and all the people who have sign-offs if they want to continue to do that. So be it. But I just want to say, without looking at these codes, that we may just want to keep in mind. And again, Terry's the only one stepping up, inviting to do these events.
Well, we can talk about the scope of that. The scope of this scenario is specific to Mondays, where there are no other places open on Mondays for dinners or anything like that. So it definitely fills a gap, it fills a void. So in the event someone were to come to us with that, we could look at the scope and see how this specific purpose fills that void in the scope of what we're trying to do.
And what about the cruise ship schedule? What is that?
We don't have a cruise ship schedule either, and that's what the harbor master bases his decision on. Typically, we get the cruise ship schedule in November. It is my understanding that they are going to come weekly, and Bucksport's going to be their first stop, and they are not going to Bar Harbor. They're going to stay in Bucksport and visit the fort, and that is it. And then they're going to head out from Bucksport, and the cruise ship is going to go to Bar Harbor. So the people are going to stop being bussed out of town.
Any other questions from the committee?
So then if that happens, then the restaurants may be open on Mondays if the cruise ships are here on, saying, correct? I'm just a question.
No, it's,
Good question.
when the schedule becomes available, it is presented to all the businesses. I know Sundays were difficult because some owners had, this is our day off, this is, you know, they have their reasons for being closed on certain days. Typically, Monday is a recharge day, meaning they'll get supplies, they'll take time off for mental health, you know, for themselves, and then reopen on Tuesday or Wednesdays. Because especially with restaurants, what you have to realize is that each of the restaurants, the owner of the restaurant is the cook. At Glenn's, it's Glenn. At Dino's, it's Dino. At McLeod's, it's George. At Warren's, it's Mindy. All the owners are cooking at their restaurants, so it's not like they're overwhelmed with culinary art students or people with that background wanting to cook. So that's typically why you see restaurants closed on Mondays and Tuesdays.
So that's a good way for us to narrow down any other places coming to us on the for-profit end of things, that we are literally narrowing this into a Monday scenario that fills the void in the town, period.
Well, I think to Rich's point, though, you know, that's where an RFP would be, have some,
Backing for the Mondays?
well, we'd make an equal opportunity for everybody, but, you know, in theory, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Was there any additional cleaning of public restrooms?
During vendor? No, we didn't have to do extra cleaning.
How did the vendors do?
They did really well. There was, I think maybe one that didn't do as good as the other ones, but for the most part, they did very well. And a lot of people said that they were glad that there was food options available on Monday evening, and just, you know, somewhere to go at night and, you know, socialize.
Did the same vendors come back, each one? Good. That's a pretty good sign, so.
Rich, is there any additional cost to the town?
Well, we don't know from Chief Winchester. Typically in the past, the requirements for alcohol is a double barrier and a police officer assigned. It's been like that at all of it. So that cost gets passed on to whoever's running the event. So that wouldn't be in a cost taken on by the town. It would just be a cost taken on by the for-profit agency, because nonprofits are provided sub-services with theirs.
So in this, there's no additional burden on the town?
No, most of Terry's vendors used generators last year. I don't think anyone used the electricity.
They bring their own trash cans too, so
They
people.
haul their own trash,
Yep.
I saw that.
Just as a point, let's say if we agree to this, it could always be, our vote can always be reversed. The town could always choose in the future to end the event, and that would prevent McDonald's from, or would that not prevent McDonald's from going? Just using that as a point.
Nope, the option says for-profit. Any for-profit can come forward, the way the ordinance is written and the way your application is written.
I think we
It's
did
a
have one a few
not-for-profit
years ago,
for-profit.
didn't we? Like a job fair or something somebody wanted to have down there?
There was a job fair that a company wanted to do on the Bucksport waterfront, and it was decided that they could not do it. And then, not too long after, the ordinances were changed and for-profits were allowed, and the Bucksport Bay Business Coalition has done events.
So by kids, you actually mean young people, you don't mean kids, it's young people. That would,
For
yeah,
working?
kids would be, teach kids customer service, so it's young people.
Well, there are some kids as young as 8 that know how to crochet and was selling their stuff, so any school-age person can do that and sell.
Is the town required to take out any kind of advertisement for this at all? And
Nope.
if they are, great. If they aren't, great.
Nope.
Asking that question, 'cause you brought it up.
Yeah, no, the coalition provides the banner goes up, it's every 2 weeks, so this is where it gets kinda tough. The banner poles can hold 3 banners, and the way we've operated is the farmer's market stays up throughout the season, and then, vendor bender goes right underneath that, because it's, every 2 weeks, and that was later, so this would be pushed up a little bit closer. And then if there's a third event, we can get a third one up there, and that usually sits on the bottom, because that's the one that rotates out. It's 2 weeks before that a banner can go up, and then has to come down. In this instance, because of the repetitive nature, these 2 banners stay up. If multiple events go on top of the other 2 that are there, they come down. And it happened with, I wanna say Ghostport and Fright, but then as soon as Ghostport ended, it went right back up. So, the only difference is you see banners on that pole, because if it's in the requirement of every 2 weeks, they stay on those poles constantly. Good, bad, and different, it's a good point, that is something that does happen though, but the town does not take advertisement or make advertisements, but I believe the village puts it in their newsletter for all the groups, profit, nonprofit, RSU, churches. So that's where the advertising out of that comes from.
Rich, this is an annual application.
Yes, all festival applications are reviewed annually. So, Terry ran, Bucksport Bay Business Coalition ran September and October. When the new calendar runs over in January, this will then be taken up at a council meeting in the new year for a new permit for 2024.
And insurance is covered?
Yep, as part of this, Terry has to
Yep.
provide,
Yep. And you guys have it on
liability,
file.
certificate of liability, up to $1 million.
I don't have any more questions.
What's the pleasure of the committee?
Did you wanna take them both or one?
I would say we do them one at a time.
Okay.
One's for every 2 weeks, the other one is for, it's a one shot.
It's
Yeah, one-shot
The
deal.
one-shot deal will have added costs, so that's when we'll.
We can address, talk
Yeah,
about
we
that.
can address the other one that way.
Yep.
I'll do it in the affirmative. I move to recommend that this application be passed on to the council pending review of
I'll
this.
second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. A recommendation, I should say, passes. And the second event is Water World.
Same thing, the vendor, in this case, Bucksport Bay Business Coalition, from their own marketing. The added cost would be the water, or the water slide will be built to the town, and the electric for having the water events. Those would be your 2. There's a single bathroom down there, and I think when you did Bay Festival down there, you didn't have porta potties, right? You
I
just
did, I
one.
had one, but it was hardly used.
Yeah, so there's the one bathroom down there versus that has the 2. The only thing, and again, this is on the party, the parking lot would be closed, so the nearest public parking besides on street would be this parking lot. And that's up to the people if they wanna walk. But, that was used for a water event 2 years ago when the coalition did Bay Festival. There was a water park down that end, nothing this end, and the rest was down that end.
Right. Yeah, we use generators, to inflate the water slides.
You did the generators, you
Yes.
didn't use power, okay, so
Right.
just the water, that's what you plan on doing again?
Right, and Dave, I talked to Dave about it, and he said that he had no problem with that.
Dave would be, main water.
Yep. Any questions, anyone?
Just a couple, maybe. On the water slides, which is a lot of fun, okay? You have $1 million insurance policy. Who's running the water slide?
We have, one person for each thing to make sure that the, generators have the gas and all that, so
Yep.
there's always an adult.
Right, is there a company, or do you rent the equipment?
We
and bring-
rent it, and they install it,
Yeah.
and then they come and take it down and haul it off.
Is $1 million enough?
And they have their
This
insurance
day and age.
too. They have their insurance also because it's an inflatable.
Okay,
The company that I rent the
Yep.
stuff from, they have their own insurance that's covered as well as mine.
is
Do
it
they-
on
do
file?
they-
What, from
Okay.
last year?
No, for this coming year.
They have mine,
Yeah.
but since I haven't rented it yet, I won't get it until I rent it.
Okay,
Do they set it up, or do you?
They do.
They do, okay.
Yeah, they do everything, set up, tear down.
all right, and that's why I was thinking, I mean, obviously you have your insurance, but then I'm thinking about the equipment.
Yeah, they got
And,
theirs.
you know, that $1 million doesn't take much these days, you know?
No.
All, anybody gets a hospital bill understands, $1 million doesn't cover much.
What's the requirement of the town?
Certificate of liability,
Yep.
In what amount?
$1 million. Yeah, we don't get it from the coalition does the insurance to the water slide company and the town. And, same thing when we had Bay Festival here, the company came and set up the inflatables.
Mhm.
And then they can't come back and they disassemble,
It was the same company.
same company, so it's the same thing. So this is that.
We've used it for the school before.
Last time you ran
Just a question, carry on what Dick was saying. It does state that each inflatable will be supervised by an adult to make sure everything is safely maintained, or I guess you mean also, operated. Does the public safety officer have any input before everything is going on to be explained exactly how it's gonna be operated, so he could say, well, that doesn't mesh up with what I would like to be done in order to protect the town? Does the public safety officer
They don't,
get
they don't
approached?
come and do inspections of the water slide. They,
Leave that to the people in the field.
Yeah, they didn't do that for the events here, Joe. The only time that they really get involved is, crowd control if we're expecting too many people and, alcohol. And the parade. But other than that, the company, we leave it up to the company. It's their equipment, they know how to set up, they know, they're the subject experts.
Is the town responsible at all if something should happen?
no, they get listed, the town gets listed as additional insured by the, water slide place too.
Although that won't prevent any lawsuit.
Well, that's what today, that's what happens, and I'm just thinking about
But
it.
it's important that
Yeah.
exactly happens, that
Yeah,
it's.
the event is a good event, it's just a matter of making sure we cover everything.
Yeah. I feel like the scope of this particular event is different than the scope of what we were doing with the Monday events.
Yes.
I feel like our purpose and objective and our structure is a little bit different. Do you think we would need to consult the town's attorney and just table this until the next meeting? Or do you think we have enough to move forward?
Well, it's only a recommendation, so, I mean, we
It's
can
only-
certainly bring it up on a council level. I
That's-
mean, if this committee feels it brings something
Can I say
economically.
something?
Sure.
But this
Come on
whole
up.
thing was done twice, the same thing, that didn't, not that I'm saying that you don't have any, you know, every right to go to an attorney, but this has already been done twice.
Right, and like I said, it's a recommendation, it's not approval, so.
So in the meantime, we could next time you have him on the phone, we could ask that, couldn't we, Rich?
I can ask Luke, I don't have any conversations with the attorney.
Okay,
But
but
I
we-
can ask Luke to.
Okay.
Well, one of the times it happened was the town did it, right? Is that what I understand during the Bay Festival?
I did it the year before.
Oh, you did it
with
in the
Water
Bay
Slides,
Fest.
And then they did this last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't do water.
Oh, you didn't?
Yes.
You know, you did the bouncing balls.
We do
That's probably
bouncing.
worse. so.
It's a little warm.
That was this far.
Any other questions?
Rich, you mentioned could be added expense to the town for the water, but why, does the town work the same way as I do? I have a minimum usage, and the town probably doesn't even approach that in any way, so why would there be any additional expense to the town?
The waterfront has its own, each town department has its own waterfront, so the marina.
Yeah.
Each time the cruise ship comes, right, we get usage, there's a meter on what we use as well. So it may, but that bathroom runs, well, it's not running year round this year, but that bathroom runs almost year round. So there's water there, the water fountain, when we fill that up, it's gonna be very minimal. But when someone asks, is there any additional cost, that's minimal at most. I think when Terry ran it a couple years ago, it wasn't much.
And Rich, it's water only, not sewer.
That's a good question. I don't have a sewer bill for the waterfront, so I would say yes.
Depends on the water you take out. at the end.
It goes back into the ground. Yeah, it's very minimal. As a matter of fact, being the weather when you did this that year was kind of, it rained, didn't it? But you still had a very good turnout.
Everything rained on my stuff. I did a little bit.
It was a very, it was a popular event.
I would make a motion to forward to the council then.
Seconded.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? Recommendation passes. Item 4, discussion items. Update on request for funding for 2024 DDEI grant.
So, at the recommendation of the committee, I did speak to Town Manager Lassard, in regards to funding for the 2024 DDI grant, and there are no funds available for the grant this year.
Okay. And item B, update on the, well, I should say, is there any questions, anybody, for Rich on that, or? No. Item B, update on Bucksport Safety, Accessibility, and Economic Conceptual Plan.
So I originally emailed the crew, the triple, and then I had a meeting with, John Paul, Nancy, Town Manager Lassard, and our assessor, Caitlin Eldridge. We met, and a few different things had happened. Sort of like the heart and soul, there's gonna be some block parties that are gonna be held. The village is gonna help. I had a third meeting with Nancy and Emily Fitzgerald from the village, and also from the Brown Hall Committee. And there are gonna be up to five block parties that are gonna be proposed. They're not gonna start in January, because we wanna keep it fresh in everyone's mind. They'll start in March, and you can look for them at potentially Brown Hall, Silver Lake Estates, Rod and Gun Club, the golf course, and the Erie Center, to hit each of the sections of town, the Outback, the Route 15, the Route 46 in town, and then up there as well. The second meeting I had with Nancy was just to discuss, you guys remember, I may have had one picture in the original pamphlet. More for people, this was presented to the voters as they left. Nancy, and I want to thank her, manned the booth the entire day. She had some volunteers that sat with her. They answered questions for the public. There was a big board that had these same pictures, but they were blown up. She told me she's not a subject expert, but if you click this QR code, it actually does bring you to the town website, and it brings you to the actual plan. So, Nancy, do you have anything? You had a few people.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much every voter stopped. You know, it wasn't hard at all to get them to come and get the brochure, and they were very interested. The large pictures were helpful. They were very positive about it. You know, they love seeing that easement now in the parking lot behind the pharmacy, and that goes over, that has been okay. I mean, that made a lot of sense. The sidewalks made a lot of sense. There was some discussion about the parallel parking and the diagonal, but actually one woman was adamant that, you know, she couldn't parallel park, she didn't want to do that, and somebody was there with her and they said, well, you know, like, I feel like it's really dangerous when I come out on the diagonal by the town hall, and she goes, oh, I do too, it's terrible, you can't get out. So it was kind of cute, you know, I think that, I did make it clear, and, I had gotten a few other people to volunteer, that we were not advocating one way or another on this plan, that my understanding was that it's a process of educating the public, so when they go in June to vote, they're educated, and so whichever way they go, you know, they've got the information behind them. When we talked about, forming a committee, that day with Emily and myself and, Rich, and what those, it's not a heart and soul project. You know, this isn't a heart and soul project, but the process of how you take this to the people, rather than expecting the people to come here, you know, for a meeting. My understanding was that it was sort of the same group of people, not that many that came during the planning process. So we were successful in taking it to the different areas in Bucksport. You know, getting people in those areas that will help to coordinate something like that. So that was great, and I think the committee, I mean, I guess it was my feeling at these meetings that, again, it's not a heart and soul. I don't think this is just a public plan. This is a town council. They've you know, put this out that we're gonna have the referendum vote, and the town really worked on that. There wasn't public, I mean, there was the public input at these meetings, but they weren't part of a committee or anything like that to make the plan, so they really know the plan. So I think that at these gatherings that we organize, that a town council person needs to be in attendance and have that expertise.
Yep.
Somebody we talked about from the DOT making some large kinds of visuals, so
Yep.
that they can really explain where the, you know, I wasn't quite sure what the red line was going across, but you folks would know what that is. You know, somebody from the staff, Caitlin or Rich, you know, that have worked to sort of make it a whole community thing, and then have community people, you know, that, so we're trying to kind of organize really a committee. And two people are here that are on my list to call, so I will get to that. But somebody from the Bucksport Bay Healthy Community seemed like a really good person to have to help me planning this, since it's safety, accessibility, you know, the more, you know, I talked with a couple different business people that came through, and they're totally supportive of it. So, you know, just strategies that we use during Heart and Soul, of really bringing the community in, you know, really getting businesses on board, getting, you know, and that all takes
Time and effort.
and,
Yep.
But it takes, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was excited, and Rich has been awesome, and, you know, recreating the brochure, and people all took it, and I was thinking of March, when we have the primaries, that's another opportunity, that there could be other people, that we just have these available. And then, of course, the vote in June, but
Yep.
maybe shops, I don't know, we don't need to get into details, but anyways.
Go ahead, Rob.
So Nancy, I have a question. Have you studied it enough to be able to say if this meets any of the initiatives that Heart and Soul did put forward?
I mean, really, the bigger, you know, idea, one of the, what happened to her?
Yeah, I know, it was always up there.
It was up there until it got
Wow,
painted.
very
I don't think,
They got painted, and I don't,
Wow.
Uh-oh.
we'll have
Yes,
to, we'll find it.
I always
Yeah.
point to those.
Yeah, they're all-
Yeah, me too.
Oh, they gotta go
nothing's
back
found their
up.
way back up.
We can find them.
We
You
got
know,
the
was
clock
that-
back, so.
Yeah.
That after all those hundreds of stories, that a vibrant downtown was
Right.
important. You know, that was one of the things that were important. I don't know, John Paul might be able to help. I mean, in terms of particulars, you know. of the-
Certainly around the, walking accessibility,
Yes,
safety.
yes. A healthy community
Yeah.
was another one of the
Yeah.
values, right, absolutely.
I don't know that safety in and of itself was one of the statements, but it was encompassed in a lot of the statements.
Right, right.
If I remember right, there was something about Rufus Guggen's in there being more accessible, or-
That would have been one of the 82
right?
ideas, yeah.
Yeah,
And I would say, I'm just off the top of my head, I would guess that there's probably, of the 82 ideas, there's at least 10 that this touches on.
right, that would be
Something.
interesting, Ron, that's a good
Right.
point,
Yeah.
that would be great to, yeah, we can look through those and just catch them, you know,
Yeah.
what's, my 70-year-old mind, I forget, like. I
Well, we'll
guess
get them
it's-
back here, so we all have a prompt,
Yeah.
you know, to work with.
Oh, there was something like when I was thinking, you know, like, I don't have the expertise on it. You know, I wasn't part of the planning, so my head doesn't really wrap around it. Okay, come back. Oh, so when we met with Rich, he talked about, you know, like with the parallel parking, the roads would be narrower and the sidewalks larger. I didn't have that concept at all. I wouldn't have been able to tell anybody coming through that day that that's why the streets are being, you know, we were gonna enlarge I knew the sidewalks were gonna get bigger, and, seemed like enough for me, but I never even thought of the roads, you know, that was just an example how, you know, we don't want people telling things that aren't true about it, you know. Oh, and I think the other thing is the process that happens after the vote. You know, like, this is a vote, and then what is the process? I think people wanna know that,
Okay.
you know. So anyways,
Thanks, Nancy.
thank you.
But I think your question, Ron, is a good one, and not just with Heart and Soul, but with the comprehensive plan and the ADAPT plan. What of those three major plans does this address? You know, what points of those plans does this address? Because I'm sure you find it all throughout all
Commonalities,
three of them.
yeah.
Well, I know for me, speaking as a downtown business person, because I have one that's on Central Street, that, you know, the idea of a sidewalk down there is really good, and I've gotten now close to 250, you know, reviews up there. And the vast, vast majority of those people walk to Main Street and then walk on the waterfront and mention it. And, you know, any improvement for that flow, I think, would be a big highlight for all the visitors that I get.
I would agree.
So I have a question that I have not asked, and I thought I should. First off, we go for 10 million on this. You know, 1 million from the city and town, and 9 million from the government. Is there a reason why it's at the 10 million mark? Should it be higher? I mean, I'm just asking.
That was based on the estimate, I think, that was provided, was it not?
Okay, everybody quiet.
I thought it had something to do with sort of what the town felt that it could bite off, personally.
Was that your?
It was in the plan that everything minus the underground utilities, a figure was put there
Yeah.
Yes,
in case the town wanted to do that on its own, but when you added each of the categories,
yes.
the figure came up to 9-point-something million, so that's why I used the words approximate 10 million and roughly 1 million.
Well, that's where I was kind of, I didn't know for sure.
Yeah.
And then I have a comment I'd like to make. One, I think that's a beautiful picture you have. And it's also false advertising. Do you know why I'm saying it's false advertising?
Because there's no utilities.
There is no utilities, there's no wires showing what the true Main Street would look like. We are painting a picture that when we hand this out, I know if I got this, I'd say, whoa, that's pretty, that's beautiful. But we gotta give them the true image of what we're doing. The poles will be replaced. Wires, I have no idea whether they'll be upgraded or not. Sidewalks are gonna be ADA and all that kind of good stuff. But I think we gotta show what's really going on Main Street, especially if we're gonna advertise it. So people have a good, clear view of what their Main Street would look like. Everybody's all for making it look pretty. I'm all for making sure it's real.
Yeah, and these pictures came from the report, and I get what you're saying, and we scrutinized it, because if you look a little bit further,
Mm-hmm.
so the in front of you image is a woman riding a bike
Yeah.
and parallel parking in front of the
Yeah.
Lighthouse Gallery.
Yeah.
But if you look just a little bit further down to where the Rosens building is,
Yes,
they're still diagonal,
yeah,
right? So those are little things when we accepted the report. Same thing with the picture in front of the Rubens Park. If you look back down by the Nicholson building,
yep,
so right in front of you is the expanded sidewalks, the expanded park, but voila, there's
Yeah,
the
back
diagonal
angle.
parking again, so.
yeah.
And the poles are not on the main street, but if you look on Central Street, on the
Yep.
corner, there's the pole going.
Yep.
So yes, there's some inaccuracies, and when I asked the DOT for photos, they wanted more current, in order to get something in front of the public, which was something they would see in the report.
Yep.
I used what was given to us.
I
So maybe a
understand.
little something for an illustration underneath saying, picture to scale, not 100%.
Well, I'm just pointing it out. And then the bike path, will there be a bike path? I mean, I see
You mean
I see
where
the
the lady is?
yeah, in other words,
thought
since
there
we're
was a
gonna
bike
do
path.
parallel parking,
Yeah.
okay, is there going to be bike paths put in?
It's not gonna be a designated bike path itself. In the report, when you look around the MMA area to, I wanna say maybe Third Street, look, that might be the widest point where you can do one. But in the road, you'll see, a picture of a bike so that it's shared space. Vehicular and bike between the yellow
Mhm.
and the sidewalk.
Well, I was just thinking where we're going to try to do that, and the sidewalks be wider,
From what we've been told, that is correct.
okay? And one of the things they've done in Saco after doing what we talked about, they actually put cafes outside. Is there any talk about doing cafes on that? Would people be able to put restaurants, tables and chairs outside?
I mean, there
on
would
the
be,
sidewalk?
I mean, Luke could probably speak better than any of us, but I mean, we could propose changes, Dick, but right now, I
No,
don't even
it's-
know if that's in there.
Well, that's why I thought I should ask. I mean, it's,
How wide the sidewalk is in front of a particular business.
Mhm.
So there might be some spots where it could work and there could be somewhere it won't.
Understood. Yeah, you go down to Saco to the Golden Rooster on Main Street, right downtown. Do you know what that is, Rich?
I haven't visited there, but I've driven by.
Oh, okay, yeah, so they've expanded and roped off an area, and kinda looks nice, but obviously the wheelchair, there isn't quite much room. I don't understand it, but anyway, they're allowed to do it, so, just thinking about what will happen to that space.
Go ahead, Ron.
The only thing I wanted to add, because I wasn't here last time, I don't know if you talked about it or not, but for perspective, I asked Rich what was the town's share of the walls, and it's gonna be about the same as this. So that was under an MPI program, which we paid 50%, but it was 900 and some thousand like this.
Roughly, yeah, because the most recent wall that was completed was all town funding, because that was not previously done by an MPI, so yeah, roughly about that 900,000.
Oh,
So,
Walls are
I mean, if you're gonna compare what you get for the 900,
Yeah.
I think you could make a comparison that this is a lot more.
It is a lot more substantial.
Yeah, Dick, it's interesting on the first photo of on the inside. I don't know, it could just be the way the photo got duplicated or something, but it looks like there's power lines going across the street there.
That's not even Bucksport, John Paul, I don't believe.
Right.
It's not.
I mean, that's the thing, some of these aren't really, they're not Bucksport. I mean.
You know, I think most people wanted to talk. Very few people, we didn't just hand it, and so we were really clear. This shows but they will be, they'll be placed differently, it could be different, but people weren't concerned about that so much. I mean, because it's not part of this plan. I mean, it wasn't part of this 10 million, right? I mean,
Yep.
you could not do those
It was $4.5 million to do them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
listed in the plan, but
Right.
that the funding could not go to that. But to Dick's point, we do have to be clear
Oh,
that, yes,
absolutely, no,
absolutely,
I'm
yeah.
not arguing with that,
Yeah.
but I am just saying, yeah, that,
Have a disclaimer.
Yeah, some
Yeah.
depictions.
Concept drawings may not actually represent real outcomes.
And that's why you're superintendent.
No.
there'll be a good time to put together a new brochure.
All right, moving along, anything else on,
Just,
go ahead, John.
on my mind, one, do we actually, can't we divert the bicycles up to Franklin Street? If we're thinking of people going up on Route 15 rather than go through Main Street, as a safety precaution. So, that's one, and also, the concept in your report is to take the utility lines and bury them either now or afterwards. I mean, to do it afterwards would make no sense, because then we have to rip up everything that is being done. So I think it should be stressed that the utility lines should be buried, if they are, when this is being done, as opposed to being done later.
I don't think there's an appetite to do that, but.
$4.5 million just.
Wow.
Not to bury the lines or to bicycle up Franklin Street. I've done that plenty of times and I'm all set, so.
Electric bike.
Yeah.
So a little bit of a disclaimer about the bicycle. The path actually comes down Route 15, so you come across the Dr. Tagan Bridge, you take a left at the light, and then you take a right up Central Street. That's the bike path, the East Coast Greenway Alliance, right? And then it goes up Central Street, out Bucks Mills, into Orrington Brewer, all the way up to, does it end in Fort Kent or Caribou or somewhere up that way?
I haven't finished it yet.
I look at signs. I tell my kids, this is how you can get back to Bucksport if you're on any back road, follow those signs.
You all set, Joe?
Yeah, not only because in the picture it has, the only one that is of actually a Bucksport, they have a bicycle drawn right in the middle of the lane of Main Street, and like, if we are gonna,
That's what they're talking about.
yeah,
Yep.
that's what I'm questioning.
All right, item C, update on proposed Middle Street housing project from 11/7 Planning Board.
So November 7th was also Election Day. There was a planning board meeting. And Penquist Jason Bird, who approached the committee about 27 Main Street once upon a time. They have a contract, purchase and sales agreement to acquire the Knox View Apartments, which is located on Middle Street. And it's an 18 unit, 1-bedroom apartments with priority given to those 55 and older. But they're not gonna sit vacant if they don't have 55 and older. And plans are also in the works to overhaul, fix up what's already existing for the apartments, as well as those duplexes. And then there are future plans for an additional 4 more buildings up in that area as well, parts of the phase 2 and beyond. But phase 1 would be 18 brand new 1-bedroom apartments.
That'd be good.
And that was approved by the planning board.
Any questions from the committee?
The only question I have, and I brought this up when I found out about it, I just made a public statement, these are not Section 8 housing.
No, they used workforce housing when they were presenting it to the planning board the other night, were some of the terms that they used, so.
Which that has been a topic of
Yeah.
conversation on this
Yes.
group for years now.
Yep.
So.
Fair enough. Anything else from anyone? Item D, update on the following projects. Franklin Street Wall, Central Street, well, you just want to start with one?
Yeah, we'll say one at a time. Franklin Street Wall, the wall is complete. The sidewalks are built back to what they were. They couldn't be expanded or anything else if they were asphalt sidewalks. So on the Franklin Street side, that was re-asphalted. And on the Central Street side, it was sod, and we'll grow grass back up that way. So, one thing that was added because of ADA and needed to be added is there are the plates on the ground. And then also across the street in front of 69 Franklin, which is the building prior to the Methodist Church, so that someone who's visually impaired has that means of going from one to the other.
Okay.
So that project is done. I need to verify, because I did contact our engineer. The one thing the contractor had not done as of last Thursday was clean up the parking lot that the church graciously allowed them to use for the project. And I didn't get a chance to go up there today to see if it was done, but she assured me that
It was.
it was.
I
okay.
checked on Friday, because I had
Good,
spoken
okay.
with Susan. It was
Very
in
good.
time for the mass, for the funeral for the lady from, you know.
Oh,
Excellent.
Sister
All
Lucy.
cleared out.
So the project is complete. They're waiting on last payment.
Okay, great. Central Street Mill and Fill 2024 MPI.
So bids came back in overpriced, which put the project over 600,000, which means our share would have been over 300,000, which would have then brought it to the voters. It was a lot higher than what the engineer anticipated. We've come in under budget on every project I've done with this engineer, except for this project. So we had two choices. One was to cancel the application, reapply, when we ended up sending it to the voters in June, or two, go back to the winning bidder, the low bidder in this instance, and see if they would make, if there's any changes that we could make to get that bid to come down. Now, the reason we didn't do it both is because there was almost $600,000 difference between the two bids that we received. What we ended up finding out is that Wardwell's construction was required as part of the water project they did this summer, north of Broadway, up Central Street, to actually pave that section. So that hadn't happened yet. And Mandy just happened, Oliver Associates just happened to be the engineer on that project, reached out to Wardwell's, and Wardwell's will be paving that section. So with that news, we brought that to Vaughn Thibodeau, who was the low bidder, and he lowered his price accordingly based on dollar figures per amount for the asphalt. So not just to get us under, but actually get us under by the actual amount of what he was charging for that unit price. And the town council approved the project at Thursday's council meeting. They approved the bid, and the mill and fill, so from Broadway down to Main Street, will take place this spring.
What is this project?
So the project came about because the state wants to give Central Street, wants the town to take over Central Street. We already maintain it, we pretty much do everything already anyway, they pay us to do that. It connects to two town roads anyway, it turns into Bucks Mills once it gets to Millvale. Sue and Jay met with the MDOT and said there were certain criteria that needed to be done. One, we had horrible flooding by the intersection of Millvale and Central, and that needed to be ditched out. That happened. And there was one other major thing that needed to be taken care of, that DOT did. And then the other part was we won, it was gonna be paved. And what happened north of Broadway out to Millvale was a 5/8 inch maintenance paving. But Sue and Jay said it's necessary for this section to have a mill and fill because of the deteriorating condition, and the DOT was not going to pay for that. So I got wind of it and knew that if I could apply for a grant, which is the MPI, and get them to pay for 50%, which they agreed to do. So instead of the town going to voters and asking for almost 600,000, the town pays about 275 to have a mill and fill. And it would be, and there's going to be some other things that needed. There was a manhole that was in distress that needs to be repaired as well. All falls underneath that MPI project. So that part will happen this spring. Wardwell's cut the section that needs to be paved. That was cut today. We're supposed to have temps up to the 50, so I'm imagining they're going to pave the section where the manholes are very high. That will be paved, I am assuming, this week.
Okay. Did you need
Yeah, better review, I guess.
That, the flooding at Millvale and Central, Is that still happening? Because I know they ripped it up and they put a culvert in.
Correct, that was part of it, they didn't
So
put that culvert.
tomorrow morning at
Since that's been done, I've heard of no
9
complaints,
tomorrow morning.
haven't seen any flooding. The one problem area over by 15, which is where Ron's building is,
'Cause I'm off.
lower, Central Street floods and ices over very bad, especially in front of the side entrance to the Jed Prouty. That issue is going to also be taken care of with this project, so we won't be having that same ice issue. There's a drain that's not plugged into the street. It's above ground, so I think it's called a French drain, and that's now gonna be tied into the system. Had I known when we did the walls, I would have asked for it to be taken care of then. I just assumed it was natural water. And when the contractors explained it to me, I said, well, that was an opportunity missed, but I was able to incorporate it in this next project.
Thank you, Rich.
Just,
Go ahead, Larry.
you might want to explain what mill and fill mean.
It's where they, my understanding is where they tear up the road, grind it, and then build it back together.
Okay, so some folks might not.
Fair enough.
I've learned a lot.
Item 3 under that is 2 remaining US Route 1 walls, 2024 MPI.
On Halloween afternoon, I applied for the last 2 remaining walls, Buck Cemetery and 61 US Route 1 for another MPI. Both of these would be 2024 funding. This project came in at an estimated cost of $595,000, $415,000 of that at the Buck Cemetery alone. It is with MDOT approval, with town council approval, it is my request that this project be done prior to Memorial Day, because we're going to have big issues with summer traffic between Memorial Day and Indigenous People Day. I know it might put a little bit of burden on the busing situation with the school, but the tourist traffic and the calls to MDOT and then me getting calls daily was not what I want to deal with this summer. So that's my goal and my plan, have it engineered as soon as snow's gone and have it out to bid and hopefully done before Memorial Day.
Okay.
And then we will not be in the need of any more MPIs.
Sounds good. Item 4, here's the knock on wood, Town Dock Project.
So I got news from Senator Collins' office last Monday that the full Senate approved our request for conditional directed spending for the town dock project. It is not a guarantee still, there's still more steps to go, but we've made it out of one chamber. So we still got some more time, but just to keep everyone aware, I'm still in constant contact with Senator Collins' office and keeping a close eye on this project to make sure that we know whether or not we're gonna get this funding.
Great, thanks, Rich. Item 5, discussion of items not on the agenda for the committee and the public. We can start with the public.
Hello, folks. My name is Stephen St. Peter Jr. As you know, I own Electric Slash Solar for Bucksport, Maine. I'd like to present a video, and then I'll speak right after that.
Do you wanna explain to them what they're gonna see first, or?
Okay, so about 15 years ago, the town, or was it just the gas stations, wanted to do like a commercial to, shop in town while you fuel your car and stuff like that. So years later, I'm thinking to myself, why not do one that has charge and shop while your car's charging, maybe for 4 hours. You can get a bite to eat at one of the restaurants, shop at Simple Soul, go to McLeod's, or walk the waterfront, or what have you. I think it's time that we do a new version of this, and I think it'd be kind of cool to, promote the chargers that we have in town, because that's becoming a hot ticket right now, and most people don't know about the chargers here in town. So, but thankfully the town and DOT put the signs to say, hey, we got chargers, but it'd be nice to do an updated version of this with the charging stations. So, with that being said, I'd like to play that video. I saw that was a well-done commercial. I think that we could do something similar to that, to get the word out about our charging stations. We have 2 at the waterfront, 1 over at Powerwise, and I believe Alex Gant is gonna be looking to put 2 charging stations at the old Masonic Hall. Whether you like it or not, electric cars, plug-in hybrids are the future. I mean, as a guy that, you know, advocates for electric vehicles, it's pretty cool. And they're getting cheaper now, thank God. Yeah, I think that that'd be a great thing for the town council, the town to approve. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to you guys.
Quick
Thanks.
question for you.
Oh, gosh, okay.
I know you're so involved with this, Steve.
Yes,
Do we
sir.
have a quick charger yet?
Not yet, but I keep telling people to, you know, bring DC fast chargers. I know Mr. Rotella's been, well, I know he tried to get some DC fast chargers in town at one point. I know that Circle K is installing several chargers throughout the United States, and I think that they are going to be doing New England next, from what I've heard, the rumors anyway. So I'm hoping Bucksport will eventually get some DC fast chargers.
Okay.
Any more? Any of you? All right.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
How about, anybody else from the public? How about the committee?
I've got one for you. Our Main Street conceptual plan that we're working on with the accessibility and so on, we've had a couple side conversations here and there about our buildings and the age of our buildings. And nothing's really taken that much of a direction, or, you know, there's been a couple side conversations, but during the voting, speaking with Nancy, someone came up and spoke to us and was talking about how difficult it is to get their child into any of the buildings on Main Street. So if this plan comes to fruition, I was wondering if we would look at some ideas or some scenarios where we might do a match grant or participating funds to help Main Street businesses have their entrances also be handicap accessible for their buildings. We did that with the upgrades for the facade for the fronts last year. And that went really well, so I propose the idea, everyone just start thinking about the idea of like a similar match type program that might help bridge the gap between the buildings and the sidewalks for this to come to fruition.
Okay. Any questions for anyone?
I think it's a good idea.
I have one.
Go ahead, jump up.
Rich, can you give me an update on across the street, the lot that was sold at the town? I don't know. the number.
27 Main Street?
Yep.
Yeah, so it was tied up with lawyers for over 3 months, which pushed the project back and outside of the time frame to put a shovel in the ground this year. Had everything gone according to plan, we would have already seen progress, and I believe the goal was to have people in this November, December. But because of that delay, it threw everything off with engineers, and we're looking at the springtime. We had to change attorneys during the middle of the process.
Anyone else?
I've got just some couple of comments about what's been going on, what's happened. I don't know if you all know or not, but Bacchus has been rejuvenated, so to speak. But we're putting on their first performance on Shop Local Saturday, the 25th of November, at the Performing Arts Center with Frank Baxter. He's the main piano man. So he'll be performing for an hour from 3 to 4. Hopefully we'll have maybe a sing-along to go along with it. It should be fun. The Paper Mill Museum, the deed has been transferred for that, for the guardhouse at the old mill site. So that's moving forward. We'll be thinking about redoing that, or are thinking about redoing that. There was talk about the community garden. I guess that location at the American Legion has fallen through.
Oh, okay. I hadn't heard that.
So there's another possibility, and it's too bad Ron has left, but 18 Federal Street, Ron's been talking about possibly doing one there. But if not, I took a ride around the Knox Housing, and there's a couple of open spaces up there that I think maybe Penquist might be acceptable.
Yeah. It's worth the conversation.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
So things that have been happening.
Thanks, Larry.
Excellent.
Any other comments from the committee? Otherwise, item 6, schedule next meeting. Rich, what did you have in mind, Rich?
The second Monday in December is the 11th. 2 days after the holiday lights parade, the 8th annual holiday lights parade.
That works. Does that work for everybody on the committee?
I won't be able to be here, but
And item 7, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion and second, all in favor? Motion passes.